Hey, welcome to today's podcast here at E2 Connect. We are connecting with elders and leaders across the country and around the world. Today's topic is structures, the internal structure of the local church.
Hey everyone, welcome to the E2 Effective Elders podcast. Visit us at e2elders.org and please share this good word with others.
Hey everybody, thanks to CDF Capital for their great partnership with E2. They make our podcast possible. And today we welcome Ryan Heathco, who is the lead pastor at Ben Davis Christian Church, BDCC, on the west side of Indianapolis. Ryan, welcome today.
Hey, thanks, Gary. It's awesome to be with you on E2 Connect.
Well, and you are a great partner in ministry with us. We've been walking with Ben Davis for some time, and I'm just grateful that you said yes to being a part of today's story, because Ben Davis has got a great story.
Yeah, we're excited about where God is taking us. It's been challenging the past year. We're excited about joining you guys in October for your conference to hear more about leading through some hard times that we're in with this Delta variant and so on. But man, God has been so faithful to us. That's what makes the journey exciting. That's what makes the journey possible, to be on not just a solo endeavor, but to be on a team of people, a team of men in particular, elders in the church, working according to a New Testament model, just bringing new life to God's church. It's exciting.
Yeah, absolutely. And now you've been there at Ben Davis for 7 years, correct?
I have. It is really hard for me to wrap my brain around that, but I have.
Yeah. And Ben Davis has been around for a while, correct? Over, is it 100 years?
We're approaching our first centennial. Yeah, so that's an exciting time. And we're celebrating that with some renewal projects here in our facility.
Yeah, I'm very impressed in that Ben Davis stays put. Some churches relocate, but it's very obvious that BDCC, the elders at Ben Davis, have chosen to really adopt your neighborhood as your mission field. You want to talk about that a little bit?
Absolutely. Yeah. So we have, in a sense, adopted our neighborhood, if you want to look at it like that. We do see ourselves, though, as a church that serves all of Indianapolis and greater Indianapolis. And we do have people who travel from far and wide to come to Ben Davis. But yeah, we really believe in the power of contextual ministry. And we really believe that this church exists for a specific purpose in this specific context. And so we believe that God has marked our borders in both space and time. Our vision is every home loved. We want every home in Indianapolis to encounter the love of Jesus through the local church. And so we're big about neighboring. We have our neighborhood groups, and we also do a lot with neighborhood development, which probably makes us a little different. But, we're an urban church. We're in a community that is right next to the airport. That's been, it's been through some harder times in the past. And so we want to be a part of this community's redevelopment, because I think that's an expression of the gospel when we bring life out of death. Yeah. And I've been over to your campus many times. I'm always impressed with how, as the church has chosen to stay there, you add on, you remodel, things get a new look, and you're getting ready to do that again with a major remodeling of the campus. Now, I want to use that as a segue. This whole year of 2021 on our podcast, we're focusing on the 6 challenges that face elders, and we take that word ELDERS as our memory tool, and that S stands for structure. Now, you're, again, remodeling the physical structure of Ben Davis, but what's really been exciting to us is to see the transition, the remodeling, so to speak, of the internal spiritual structure of the church, the leadership structure. So help us understand a little bit about elder governance today. What was life like there at Ben Davis when you first came in terms of the elder leadership structure? Confusing. That's my word of the day, would be confusing. Yeah, I think that maybe first say how wonderful this process with E2 has been. We sometimes in the church put so much emphasis on how things look or sound or feel in terms of experience and content, that there's a rich experience that the things that go on behind the scenes are intact and that they're healthy. And eldership, it begins and it ends with eldership in a New Testament church, right? And so when I came into this situation 7 years ago, I'll confess to you that, I had come from the context of a church plant in Jasper. And so it was just a different dynamic than a church that was approaching its centennial. The leadership structure was definitely confusing. I think that elders and staff tended to step on one another's toes a lot because the roles weren't well defined. There was a sense in which staff felt limited rather than just being liberated to do their jobs. And I also think, that there had to be some amount of confusion amongst the elders, just knowing whether or not, are they doing the job and what defines success for them, and that's liberating in its sense for them as well, that they know what the win is. And so those things were not well established 7 years ago.
And you were in an environment, I assume, where there were nominations and elections and offices with terms, things of that nature. Would that be correct?
Yeah, you had the very typical Robert's rules, intact in meetings. A lot of the polity that goes with how we tend to do church in the United States. At least in the past half century, that was definitely the case here.
So now you've remodeled, so to speak, your internal structure, the polity, and I would assume that required some attention to your bylaws, right?
Absolutely.
So what were your previous bylaws like? What was it like to transition those bylaws? And what are your bylaws like now?
Yeah. So when you start looking at church bylaws, that is on some level an intimidating thing. When you're talking about a church that has been around for a while, bylaws that haven't been updated for a time, you want to make sure that you're honoring those bylaws in the sense that they are there to protect the church. They're there to do more than just incorporate the church. You want those bylaws. Right. You want to make sure that you're passing down a good culture of healthy leadership structure through those bylaws. The bylaws we had were certainly limiting. They were very specific on some very, some issues that I think inhibited day-to-day operations and decision-making at the table. Obviously, we were able to work directly with E2, and it was just so, honestly, it was an incredible experience from end to end, because the way that you came in and you didn't just, drop a template of bylaws on our desk, but you really went through our bylaws with us and helped us to best navigate what decisions to make, what changes to make, what things to keep. And so today, when I look at what we have, I see where we have a far more liberating document. It's a little bit more broad and generous in allowing us to operate flexibly and to adapt with these changes. Because let's be honest, I mean, I just look at my short span in ministry, even just the short span here at Ben Davis, and it's culture, the times, I mean, it really is changing so rapidly. Things like COVID-19 just, constantly throwing us surprises. Having that kind of operative flexibility now, if you would, is absolutely life-giving to our church.
So your bylaws now would be perhaps shorter, or directing people to a policy manual that you as elders, you control the policy manual, and that can be changed at your prerogative, I would assume.
That's right. Yeah. And so that they are far more broad in terms of the document itself, and they point you toward a specific policy manual, which is fantastic. And that's great too, because the policy manual is something that ultimately serves to liberate the staff. It gives us a lot of understanding of our role and and how we can best operate the church day to day.
And let me ask, how, your church is bumping 100 years of age. And when you've had me over to preach, I see all 5 living generations at Ben Davis. And so there are some people who are boomers, and they are older still. They're part of the builders. How difficult was it for you, being young, to speak words of encouragement to those who are older, to somehow, hey, please help us affirm this new set of bylaws? Yeah.
Well, let me say that I've been really blessed by the congregation I have, because by and large, they've taken it pretty easy on me. I don't have the stories that a lot of folks have. They're motivated to reach people for Christ, even our oldest generation. There's most certainly, from time to time, folks who have been in leadership of past here at Ben Davis. There's still sort of a learning curve for them on, hey, that's something that the elders have delegated their authority on. Just staying out of the weeds at times with those things. But yeah, I think people were receptive, and I think people were receptive in part because they had seen you, Gary, in our church. We had spent a great deal of time talking not only about E2, but also about church health and how that begins with healthy leadership. And so I think really the bylaw process for us, passing that, making those changes, was made much more swift and easy because people were familiar with what effective elders was all about. And they understood that we weren't just bringing in new ideas that we picked up from a conference, right? But that we were working with a ministry team with years and years of leadership experience, ministry experience to make those changes. And so I think ultimately, not only did we already have trust, but I think that only expanded the trust that we had.
Yeah, and we anchored all of that in the book of Acts. We kept telling people at BDCC, but that's our same message elsewhere. We go back to the book of Acts and we can see what elders are to do in the local church. And we develop our elder governance from there, which then is spelled out in some very simple bylaws. Yeah. Well, and then let me ask you this. How has this, you use the word health, how has this health then manifested itself there at Ben Davis, Ryan?
Man, that I could talk about for a long time. Because I would recommend the process of E2 to anyone. In fact, we support you guys now out of our missions budget, because not that we look at it in terms of, hey, we've arrived, but that we just believe in the mission of effective elders so much that we want to support you guys like that. But when I look at our elders, I look at guys who, are beyond just committed Christians, but they truly do fit the description of a New Testament elder. And I think for a lot of guys in churches, that can be a struggle, right? Finding qualified elders, making sure that your elders really understand the role of the shepherd, the metrics of success in the church, that they speak that language. I think E2 did a lot to frankly challenge my guys to rise to the occasion, to go beyond just having board meetings and to really see themselves as shepherds in the church. And so the exciting thing for me is not just that I've seen the leadership ceiling of our eldership rise, but that I've seen their spiritual growth. I've seen how E2 has challenged them to take steps in faith. It has challenged them to become greater men of God for the sake of the local church. I love it. And it's also helped us to start the process of defining what a pipeline would look like. Because now that you have that success and you have that growth and you have those metrics, you can start to look toward future generations. How do we raise up the next generation of leader?
And so, for example, now when you have an elders meeting, what kind of issues do you deal with in an elders meeting? Do you talk about recruiting the next generation of elders? Do you talk about accountability? What words would you use to describe elder meetings in this new, healthier environment?
Yeah. Before we started this meeting, you use the phrase band of brothers, and I think that summarizes it well. The beginning of our meetings really are just a time where we shepherd one another. And that's an exciting thing to be a part of, to see those guys being a part of that. In the meeting, you start to talk more and more about shepherding God's flock, shepherding the staff. Those are neat things when the elders aren't distracted by pulling all of these levers that really, the staff is equipped to do. And now they've been able to delegate that authority along with that clarity of role. They can spend time in shepherding and vision. And so those are exciting things to be talking about, where we're going, who we need at the table to be a part of that. What kind of staff roles do we need to accomplish this big God-sized dream? Yeah. And then how we just love and care for people who need love and care. That's what our meetings look like. Yeah.
Praise be to God. That's right. Absolutely. And if you were to speak to, let's say, fellow pastor who's really discouraged, he's in an environment that is not healthy, that he might be kept under the thumb of elders, what words of encouragement might you have for that individual?
Give me a moment to think about that one. I don't want to create a pause for your podcast, but of course, and I'm not just saying this because I'm on your podcast today, but I mean it with all my heart. I would immediately connect that person with E2. In fact, that even a few pastors outside of our movement, I've spoken to you about, who are local pastors dealing with situations with their board, just pointing them toward E2. I think that is a great first conversation. I think finding a safe space outside your church to express that is a wonderful thing, because no doubt when you're frustrated in leadership, that's a heavy thing to carry alone. It's also, I suppose, probably a little bit risky of a thing, and how you share that could also contribute in a really unhealthy way to your church dynamics. So, I would encourage that person to go find a confidant, go find someone to lean on in ministry, and then go find E2 and get some encouragement, and then just commit yourself to prayer and don't give up.
That's okay.
In truth, with our story too, and again, I never had it rough here, but years ago, I think when you guys were first starting the process of E2, before you had retired from the Creek, I ended up in a workshop through the Solomon Foundation, if I recall, with E2. And I remember taking those books back to our leadership at Ben Davis. And the time it wasn't there yet for us, and so I stayed with that and just prayed over that, because, while I wasn't under anyone's thumb, confusion ate me alive at times, with just the role clarity. And so finally we had that breakthrough, and we were able to partner with you guys. It's been wonderful.
Yeah. I just really want to emphasize your encouragement for people to pray. Many times we fail to realize the power of God and how significant it is when it's released through prayer. And I do believe that when we keep coming before God day after day, there's something that brings us to our knees. God sees the devotion of our heart and our dependency upon Him. And that was, I'm confident, a huge part of your breakthrough at Ben Davis. Yeah. Well, let me just ask, before we end our time together, are you enjoying ministry other than this COVID stuff? What would you say?
Man, I love the church. To be honest, COVID has worn me out at times, but, I love the church, and I love seeing God's faithfulness. I think when you put yourself in a ministry environment, you get to see God's faithfulness just constantly, whether it's the people you work with and watching how wonderful God is in their lives, or just stepping out in faith through the local church and watching God show up in some incredible ways. And so, am I enjoying ministry? Absolutely. Am I enjoying COVID-19? No. At first, I might have enjoyed in some sinister way the challenges and the creativity that came with it. But a year and a half later, I'm done. It's been a wonderful 7 years. We've been able to baptize hundreds of people here, and it's an exciting thing what God is doing. I love it, and I wouldn't trade it for the world.
And let me tell you, buddy, you're leading very well. I know that you are leading a succession on your staff of a very significant individual who has been at Ben Davis for decades, and you've honored her in a huge way, and you're onboarding her successor in such a healthy way. And, Ryan, you're leading really very exceptionally in this early season of ministry. So I just want to thank the Lord. I wish we could clone you. So as well as our partnership with Ben Davis. For those who are listening, here's just a little icing on the cake. It was a few years ago in working with Ben Davis. I was in a meeting, and I just happened to ask one of their elders what he did for a living. And Pete told me that he owned a marketing company that he had started. And long story made short, Pete Brown, who is the founder and leader of Ash Interactive, has been a huge help to E2. And we never would have made those connections had it not been for our partnership with Ben Davis. So we have been benefited by this partnership, just as you say, we have been of benefit to you. Yeah, we're better together by all means. Yeah. All right, buddy. Well, thank you again. It's been a good 20 minutes, and I thank the Lord for your good word. And I'm going to have your email address put on the screen should there be somebody who has a question for you about navigating these waters of transitioning into elder governance. Is that all right?
Absolutely.
Okay, great. All right. Blessings to you, Ryan. Bye-bye.